Question number 3, Ron Mark, on behalf of the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Thank
Order.
you.
Order. That is the sort of interjection that leads to gross disorder. Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he have confidence in all his ministers? If so, why?
The Acting Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, yes, and particularly the Minister who just said that the Leader of New Zealand First must be away on holiday.
Order. 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 I advised Mr Brownlee when he interjected that would lead to gross disorder. No one should refer to the absence of any member, and it is equally disorderly then for the Acting Prime Minister to do so. Supplementary question, Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, how can he have confidence in his Minister of Immigration when Vinod Kumar Sharma, a former Indian education agent, was able to obtain an immigration licence from the Immigration Advisors Authority despite 3 cases of confirmed fraud by Immigration New Zealand?
The Acting Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can't comment on the individual cases other than to say that if anyone has broken the law, they are likely to get caught, and if they get caught, they are likely to get punished.
Supplementary.
Order.
Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, how can he have confidence in the Minister of Immigration when he has only implemented 3 of the 14 recommendations from the Martin Jenkins Review of Immigration Advice, which has resulted in the Immigration Advisors Authority receiving 143 complaints this year about dodgy education agents that are based in India giving New Zealand immigration advice unlawfully?
The Acting Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, the Minister is implementing the recommendations of the review, and I think the member just needs to understand that whatever the rules are, there will be people who try and break them. The government can't make a set of rules that mean that no one tries to break those rules, but we can be assured that if they try and break them and succeed, they are likely to be caught and will be punished.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Ron Mark.
Mr. Speaker, I seek to table a response to Official Information Act request from the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment dated the 5th of August, giving a summary of the total number of complaints received and the recommendations that have been implemented
Order.
by Martin Jenkins.
It's been described. Leave us sought to table that particular document. Is there any objection? There is objection.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, how can he have confidence in the Minister of Energy who won't use his Section 18 powers to scrap the Electricity Authority's unfair imposition of new power charges?
The Acting Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that may be the member's view about the discussion that's going on about transmission charging, but the Prime Minister has every confidence in the Minister of Energy. In fact, I can't recall a time when consumer prices for electricity were less contentious. In fact, I believe under this minister's watch they've been dropping to some extent, which is a pretty major achievement, and I would have thought the member would want to congratulate him on that.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, how can he have confidence in a Minister of Energy when the National Party's pet pollster David Farrer found that Kiwis want to pay the same electricity prices from Kaitaia to Bluff and will not forgive his government if they betray that fundamental principle?
The Acting Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, whatever discussions New Zealand First is having with some pollster, I think won't be the top of mind for the Minister of Energy. His job is to make sure we have an efficient market, and I must say that despite the opposition of New Zealand First, the 51% government-owned companies having been partially sold down are contributing to that efficient market.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Ron Mark.
To the Prime Minister, how can hard-up families in Northland deal with another $15.5 million in power charges and, for that matter, struggling businesses in Northland?
The Acting Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, all participants in this discussion should take into account the impact on households and businesses, and in particular households and businesses in the region. And that is really the point of having what has been a quite transparent and very long, drawn-out process to discuss exactly those issues.
Supplementary question, Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister. How can the Prime Minister continue to have confidence in a Minister for the Environment who is clearly demoted as the lead negotiator over the Kermadec Ocean Sanctuary due to his bloody-minded incompetence in dealing with the fishing industry over their property rights?
Well, the question's a very marginal question. I'll let the Acting Prime Minister answer it the way he sees fit.
Mr Speaker, it's a bit rich coming from New Zealand First, who can't even get themselves organised to confirm some treaty settlements, which have already been done, and then are criticising the Minister for negotiations dealing with very complex issues of property rights for Maori. It seems completely contradictory on the part of New Zealand First.
Point of order. Point of order. Point of order.
Order. Point of order has been called.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Then I seek the leave of the House to table the voting records of Select Committee that showed New Zealand First voted against every clause of that.
Order. The member is now trifling with the House with such a point of order. Question number 4.